So, I mean, the first thing is recognizing what the challenges really are, and then understanding how you build strategies and manage things towards it. Also, working out where you really spend money. I think if you're trying to really better manage and optimize the way that you manage any learning, you have to understand the core dynamics of it. You know, where you spend, what drives activity in the background, and you need to look at how you actively engage with managing those activities. I think in the past, organizations have tended to focus maybe sometimes on the headlines around things, and ignore quite basic stuff. Now, the biggest issue for most organizations, of course, is how they do that in scale. It's fine to be able to manage, you know, if you're only doing a few things, managing them is not necessarily complex stuff. But what we see, obviously, particularly with large enterprise organizations and global companies, is being able to manage the resources that are tied into these learning activities, whether it is face-to-face or not, is actually a really significant challenge for them. And they need to be able to obviously track and have strategies for how they optimize the different resources around it, whether that's physical training facilities, whether that's around instructor resources. Obviously, things like instructor resources, you know, that's a relevant issue regardless of whether it's a face-to-face or virtual delivery, right? So you can only allocate them in certain ways. I think the more, also, I would argue that organizations have become blended and digital as part of the mix, the more challenges that's actually created in terms of how you manage things like instructor optimization and so on. So I think it's really, really important that you understand the basic almost units of what's going on here, and that you can actually build and track those activities within it. And there's some pretty disproportionate gains to get from that. You know, if the aggregate, from an aggregate spend point of view, instructor-led training often is still, you know, 50 to 70% of an organization's overall training budget. Then, you know, if you even just do that 10% better, that has massive disproportionate gains. So it's a really critical part of the mix, and it won't go away. It just gets more complicated because the number of elements that you're trying to manage becomes more complex. And again, go back to the comment I made around being more agile. We need to be able to understand that at a more granular level. We need to be able to make decisions around how we allocate resources faster, and we need to be able to ultimately make decisions that are better impact what we're trying to deliver as an organization. So all of those, I think, are critical factors in determining you know, how we manage learning in totality, let alone also looking at things like the instructor-led elements of it. So as I was saying, I think it starts with almost understanding the core units of what you're doing, being able to track those, and then being able to make sensible decisions around them, right? So in order to do that, you have to be able to analyze the way you're allocating resources, the way you're allocating budget, and also look at basic things like, you know, schedules and optimizations of schedules and so on. And there is potentially a significant value that can be had in optimizing those things. And as I said, if it's a big chunk of your budget, then that has a disproportionate impact in terms of what it either frees up or enables you to allocate into other channels and so on. So I think a lot of this is around, you know, bringing proper management structures, and also understanding how you can analyze that data in an intelligent way, plus also, frankly, support tools within the systems you're using that enable you to do that automatically. That's also a critical factor as well, I would say. The specifics of how you do that, obviously, are the specifics of how you do it are sometimes challenging. I mean, especially in larger organizations, because learning is often a federated or decentralized activity. Therefore, the visibility of the data associated with that activity is not necessarily managed centrally. So that's, I guess, another significant challenge for organizations is how do they manage these things on a federated or decentralized basis as well. The answer is not always just to try and put it all in one central pot and assume that can be then managed effectively for all outcomes. That's never likely to work, really, or it'll only work temporarily if it does. So I think, you know, the having proper tools to manage these things are really, really important.